Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the next Iowa SourceLink and Iowa Department of Revenue Sales and Use Tax webinar. We've got Terry O'Neill here joining us today from the Iowa Department of Revenue. We're excited to get into the topic today. As everyone is still logging on and getting signed on, we'll cover a few quick housekeeping things for everyone. First and foremost, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you taking your lunch hour to spend with me and Terry. This session is recorded, so the session will be recorded and will be available to view at a later date on both iasourcelink.com and the Iowa Department of Revenue website. My name is Patrick Linsman. I am program manager here at the University of Northern Iowa. We partner with the Iowa Economic Development Authority to bring you Iowa SourceLink, and then we work with our friends at the Iowa Department of Revenue to bring you our summer and fall webinar series. Iowa SourceLink is where business begins in Iowa, where we connect businesses, service providers. We connect them together that they can hopefully start, grow, and eventually maybe even exit their business, covering everything from things like taxes, like this webinar, to marketing, sales, growth. Be sure to check out iasourcelink.com, check out our guides and anything there. And up here at UNI, we've got a variety of other programs where we work with small businesses all the way up to big family-owned businesses through our family business programming. So if you've got a family business or you are a family business that you work with, we'd love to be able to help you out with that. As we are moving forward today, I think everyone's hopefully signed in, so I can send this message in the chat. You can download your copy of the slides right there to follow along with us throughout the session today. So please go out and follow along there. As you have questions during today's session, you will see the Q&A box there in your Zoom window. As we've seen before, go ahead and toss any and all questions in the Q&A box. We will do our best to answer those as time allows. If they're super specific, Terry might not be able to answer it today, but we'll have you follow up with the department to get your answer. So that's enough from me. Turn it over to Terry O'Neill. Terry is a taxpayer services specialist with the Iowa Department of Revenue, and he's our webinar guru. We've done dozens of these together, and we're always excited to have him and to talk. So today we'll be covering Iowa sales and use tax. So Terry, thanks for being here with us today.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Patrick, and welcome everybody. Good to have you attend our webinar today. For those of you that have seen me before, I'll go through the slides. We'll present the information to you. If you have questions, as Patrick said, please type them into the Q&A box, and I'll try and answer them as best I can during the presentation, or else afterwards. We should have some time for some questions. If your questions do not get answered, please reach out to us. I'll have some contact information out there, so you can reach out to us. We'll try to do the best we can to assist you. So with that being said, we're going to talk about Iowa sales and use tax here today, and we'll just go ahead and jump right in. As always, before we ever get started with any presentations here at the Department of Revenue, we got to put our little disclaimer slide up here. Basically, what this is saying is that anything that I or anyone else at the Department of Revenue says is not binding on the department. This is an educational presentation, and we're going to provide some information to you. If we get into specific questions, the answers that I'll give are certainly related to the specific question that you asked, if I can answer it. But I just want you to be aware, though, that this is not binding on anybody at the department. You have to go through a declaratory order in order to get something binding from the department. All righty. Well, let's just start out real quick with the Iowa sales and use tax. The first thing, the sales and use tax rate for Iowa is 6%. That's our state sales tax rate, our state use tax rate, 6%. There are also, for those of you that deal with sales tax, you're probably aware that Iowa has many areas of the state that has an additional 1% local option sales tax. This applies to any communities that do have the local option tax intact. There's a lot of these. There is a list on our website. There's also an application on our website, which I'll refer to later, where you can look up to see what the tax rate is. So when it comes to Iowa sales and use tax, depending on circumstances, the rate is either going to be 6% or 7%. If you're dealing with someone and the rate is different than that, It's not Iowa sales tax or Iowa use tax that you're dealing with. So just please be aware of that, 6 or 7%. Just a couple of reminders to everyone too. Iowa sales tax, it cannot be absorbed or paid by the retailer. So what does that mean? Well, essentially, if I am a customer and I come into a retail establishment and I purchase something that is subject to sales tax, you have to add the sales tax onto the price and charge me the tax and collect the tax from me, the customer. Or you can also have it included in your price if it is posted. So what do I mean by that? Well, if certain businesses, as a course of business, they have the tax included in their price. Two examples I'll give to you, which are very common in this area, are if you're going to a movie in Iowa, the movie theater tickets, if you purchase a ticket to the movies, it's usually a flat dollar fee. It's $10, we'll say, for example. And if you read the fine print on your ticket, or maybe you look at the posting behind the cash register, it usually says that tax is included in that $10 fee to see the movies. That's a very common practice for that type of business. So that's okay. As long as it's posted, that's okay. Another common one too is bars and taverns. After you listen to Terry talk about taxes here for a while today at lunchtime, you might decide you need a drink on the way home from work. If that's the case, you stop in somewhere and you order a bottle of beer, and let's say that that bottle of beer is going to cost you $3. It's happy hour, so it'll be $3. Tax is included in that price, and the bar owner should have a sign hanging up that says that, or there should be something posted for public display that says the price of this bottle of beer is $3, tax included. So if you're tracking with me on these examples, what I'm trying to say is if you sell something to someone that is taxable, you either on the receipt, you give an invoice, and down at the bottom it says, times the applicable Iowa sales tax, you have that spelled out on the invoice. Or if tax is included in your price, that's okay, but it needs to say so. It needs to be posted somewhere on a receipt or behind the cash register on the wall somewhere for public display so people can see this. All righty. Couple other things to mention here regarding Iowa sales tax. Nexus. And Nexus is a fancy term that we have that basically it means that you are required to charge and collect Iowa sales tax if you have Nexus or a presence in Iowa. Okay, this is not new terminology or anything. There are two different types of Nexus within the state of Iowa. And the first one is physical Nexus, which we have had forever. There's also another type of Nexus, which is economic Nexus. And that's only been around for a few years now. I'll explain more about both of these here in just a minute. But again, Nexus is a fancy term that means presence in Iowa. And if you have Nexus here, you must register and collect the applicable Iowa sales tax with us. Okay, for physical Nexus, this is pretty straightforward. Again, we have had this, this has been in effect for Iowa for as long as I can remember, in over 30 years here with the department. What creates physical Nexus? Well, there's some examples here on our slide that we're showing. First one, if you've got a location in Iowa, maybe you've got an office or a warehouse or some other type of business property in Iowa, that could create a physical Nexus. And that means if you're making taxable sales here, you got to register and collect our tax. Other things that create the physical Nexus, you could have an employee located here permanently, temporarily, or possibly you've got an independent contractor that's working for you. Those things can establish Nexus. Maybe you're an out-of-state business and you're going to come into Iowa and you're going to install some products in Iowa. That could also establish Nexus. You got a crew here doing some work. Construction contractors that are physically doing work here in Iowa, that establishes physical Nexus. Maybe you're a service company and your company is involved in performing various taxable services within the state of Iowa. If your workers are here performing that service work, that does establish a physical Nexus. Also, if you are delivering products in Iowa with your own vehicles, that establishes physical Nexus as well. So what am I talking about here? Maybe you are a business that's in Illinois and you deliver furniture. We'll say that you're a furniture store in Illinois. If you load up that furniture on your truck over in Illinois and you drive over to Iowa and deliver it to customers here in Iowa, that would be an example that would establish a physical nexus, which means that you'd have to collect and remit Iowa tax as applicable on those sales here where delivery occurs in Iowa. Another thing that could establish the physical nexus is leases of tangible personal property in Iowa. That could also establish nexus. So again, nothing new under the sun here. We've had physical nexus requirements in Iowa forever. So this is just basically as a refresher for everyone about physical nexus. Something that's pretty new within the last few years is economic nexus. And this is something that, as I said, is fairly recent. And what creates economic nexus? Well, if you are a remote seller and you have $100,000 or more of gross revenue from Iowa sales, that would create an economic nexus. So this means that an out-of-state business that is not physically located here, does not have anybody coming here and doing work, does not have physical nexus, they would have to collect and remit Iowa tax if they are a remote seller located outside of Iowa and they have 100,000 or more in gross revenue from Iowa sales. We also have a requirement for that could create economic nexus. This is for marketplace facilitators that make or facilitate $100,000 or more of gross revenue from Iowa sales. What are we talking about here? For example, I'm just putting these out here, could be like an Amazon type of business, could be like an eBay type of business. Those are some types that facilitate sales of over $100,000 in Iowa. If they do meet that threshold, they would be required then to collect and remit the Iowa sales tax. So again, economic nexus, this will apply to out-of-state businesses. Permit requirements. When it comes down to Iowa sales tax, any business that has nexus, as we described in the last couple of slides, either physical or economic, in Iowa, they must register for an Iowa sales tax permit, and they must collect Iowa sales tax and any applicable local option sales tax on their taxable sales within the state of Iowa. So if you are doing those things, you must have an Iowa sales tax permit. Retailer's use tax. Iowa has had a retail use tax permit for quite a few years. And what it is used for these days is if there is a retailer without a physical presence in Iowa and who does not have the economic nexus, they do not meet the $100,000 threshold from Iowa sales, they can use a retail use tax permit in order to collect and remit tax to Iowa. That's for retail use tax. Sales and use tax provisions of Senate File 2417, that was the one that brought in this economic nexus. This could require sellers that currently have a retail use tax permit to cancel that out and get a sales tax permit with us instead. Okay, so again, there may be businesses who have made sales here in Iowa for years. They've got a retail use tax permit, but if they are over that $100,000 threshold, or maybe they've got a physical nexus here with us, they really need a sales tax permit. This is something that's easy to do. If you need to have a sales tax permit instead of a retail use tax permit, submit the business tax cancellation, which can be found on our website, can be submitted online, or you can fill out the paper form and mail it or fax it to us. And then fill out the business permit registration in order to get the appropriate sales tax permit. Again, that can be completed online as well, or you can print the paper version and you can mail it to us or fax it to us. So just a couple of things about our registrations and how those are handled. Okay, as I did say, for Iowa tax permits, applications for all permits are on our website. I'll give you the web address here a little bit later on if you're not familiar with it. And it's illegal to make taxable sales in Iowa without a sales tax permit. Okay, so if you are making some taxable sales in Iowa, you've got to have a permit to do that. So make sure that you fill out the application accordingly and get the proper permit. When it comes to sales tax permits, every retail location in Iowa must have its own permit. So what am I talking about here? For example, let's say that you open up a business, you open up a restaurant, which would require an Iowa sales tax permit. And your restaurant is located in Des Moines. Well, you get a sales tax permit for Des Moines, for Polk County, and you go about your business. Well, things take off and go pretty good. So a little time down the road, you decide you're going to open up another location. Maybe that other location is also going to be somewhere in Polk County, maybe in Des Moines as well. You'd have to have a permit for that location. Maybe if things go on a little bit better, maybe you decide you're going to open up another location in Ames. All right, that would be in Story County. You need to get a sales tax permit for that location there. And then let's say after a while you decide, hey, this is going pretty good. Let's open up one in Iowa City. Well, that's in Johnson County, so you would need a sales tax permit for that as well. So what I'm trying to say here is every location that makes taxable sales within Iowa must have its own sales tax permit. So please be sure that you apply accordingly. The little number sequence that we have here for these different permit types that's on the screen, this is the formatting that we use for the different tax permit types. Retail sales tax permits, they always start with the number 1. 1 is just our code that means retail sales tax. In this example, the next 2 digits are number 85, which is the county number where the business is located. So that's how we issue these. The 6 digits afterwards, which are all zeros in this example, there would be a permit number in there. So that means retail sales tax, that first example there. Retail use tax, which we talked about a couple slides ago, this would normally be an out-of-state business that does not meet our physical or economic nexus requirements. They would get a permit with us, and it always starts with the number 2. 2 means retail use tax in the Iowa Department of Revenue world. Consumers use tax. And consumers use tax, I'll expand on this more here in just a little bit. But if you need a consumer's use tax permit, that one always starts with the number 9, consumer's use tax. And then the next 2 digits, in this example, 64, that's the county where the business is located at. And then there will be a permit number issued after that. So again, starts with a 9, that's consumer's use tax. There is also a direct pay permit as well. And this is something that it can have a few different numbers to start with, but the 4th digit is always a 9. 4th digit is always a 9. And again, I'll expand on that here in just a little bit as well. But 4th digit's a 9, that tells you it's a direct pay permit. And any of these permits, once they're issued, they do not expire. They're good forever until either you cancel it, you the retailer, or if you get in trouble and do things you're not supposed to be doing, or more likely you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, the department can revoke your tax permit. And if you are a business that collects and remits sales tax in Iowa and the department revokes your permit, that effectively puts you out of business until you get things squared away. So it's very serious. Revoking a permit's very serious. It does happen sometimes. The department does not like to revoke permits and put people out of business, but it does happen on occasion. By you being at this class today, I'm assuming you're not one of those folks that's going to be involved in that situation. So that's a good thing. But again, your permit, the point to this is your permit does not have to be renewed every year or some other time period. It's good basically until you cancel it. Looping back just a little bit on these direct pay permits, a direct pay permit allows qualified purchasers, users, and consumers of tangible personal property, specified digital products, or taxable services to remit sales and use tax, including local option tax, directly to the department. Okay, this means that when they buy things, the vendor does not charge them tax. They don't pay the tax to the vendor. They pay it directly to the Department of Revenue. And there is information on our website about direct pay permit holders. I'd ask you to check that out if that's something that you may apply to. A couple of things though, this is something that's mainly directed toward large companies that remit tax to us, remit a lot of tax to us, essentially. They've got the resources so that they know what's taxable and what's not. These things have to go through a screening process before the department issues a direct pay permit. This is not something that, a little small business, if I was in business myself, just me, a sole proprietorship, most likely I would not qualify to be a direct pay permit holder. But I just want you to be aware that they are out there. If you are a vendor, potentially you could make a sale to a direct pay permit holder. And if they sent you an exemption certificate claiming to be a direct pay permit holder, they'd write their direct pay permit number on there. Again, the fourth digit always starts with a 9. That would be the appropriate documentation in that situation. So this is more an FYI. There's not a lot of direct pay permit holders out there. I don't have the exact number in front of me, but it's certainly under 100. It's just, they're not really common. Okay, sales taxes. With Iowa sales tax, the tax must be collected when a sale is sourced to Iowa. Again, which means if the purchaser first possesses the product in Iowa, or if a product is delivered to Iowa, or if a service is first used in Iowa. So if you're buying something, again, that is taxable, it's going to be subject to sales tax here in Iowa if it is sourced to Iowa, which basically means the first use or the where you take possession of the product. Sales tax is paid by the final consumer and collected by the retailer. It is then remitted to the state by the retailer. Why do I have this out here? The reason we do this, if there's ever any question about a refund. Okay, if I'm coming into your retail store and I'm going to purchase something that's taxable, you, the retailer, you're going to ring up the sale. You're going to charge me the applicable Iowa sales tax and local option tax if we're in a local option area, and I'm going to give that to you. You're going to collect it and you're going to remit it on to the Department of Revenue. Now, if it comes back down the road and I'm like, hey, wait a minute, I should not have paid sales tax on that. Me, Terry O'Neill, should not have paid sales tax on it because I'm exempt for some reason. In that situation, I could send in a claim for refund to the Department of Revenue. And if the department agrees with me, they will send me a refund. I want to make it clear that it's no way is the retailer entitled to get a refund in that case, because the retailer did not actually pay the tax out of their pocket. They only collected the tax from me, the customer. I'm the one that actually paid the tax. And all they did was remit it on to the state. So hopefully that example makes things clear. Again, retailers are just collecting tax and remitting it on to the department. They didn't actually pay the tax on the purchase. So hopefully that makes sense for you. If not, please let me know. What's taxable in Iowa? And again, I'm going to give you the broad overview of this. What do we charge tax on in Iowa for sales tax purposes? Basically, all tangible personal property is taxable. Specified digital products, taxable. Enumerated services are taxable unless there's a specific exemption in the Iowa law. Okay, so general rule is they're all taxable, the things I have listed up there, except when there's an exception. Common taxable services, and we have a publication on our website dealing with taxable services, but I've got some of the common ones listed here. Appliance repair, cosmetology services, electrical repair, janitorial services, lawn care, landscaping, interior decorating, photography. These are just an example of some of the services that are taxable. Again, check out our website, check out the taxable services publication. That'll give you a list of all of them. Plus, it'll give you a link to the administrative rules that expands on them and tells exactly what all these services entail. Exemptions from tax include what we have listed here. The first one is a big one if anybody's in the construction business. Services performed on or connected with new construction, reconstruction, alteration, expansion, or remodeling of a building or structure. So what do I mean by this? Well, above in the common taxable services section, I listed there electrical repair or installation. So that means an electrician comes out to your house and they're going to install something for you that's electrical installation, that's a taxable service, okay? However, if they're going to do that installation in connection with the building of my brand new house, then that service is connected with the new construction. So that service, that labor, is going to be exempt from tax, okay? So hopefully that example works for you. Any labor, any services connected with the new construction, reconstruction, alteration, expansion, or remodeling of a building or structure, that's going to exempt those services from tax. Other examples here, services performed for an employer. And this one's kind of a far-fetched one, but bear with me here for an example. I am an employee here of the state of Iowa, the Department of Revenue, and I'm a taxpayer service specialist, and I do things such as this webinar here today. But let's say, for an example, the boss calls me up and says, hey, Terry, we need you to get up here to Des Moines to the Hoover State Office Building. We want you to mow the lawn today. I'd be like, okay, sounds cool to me. When I get there, lawn care services are taxable. However, I am doing this for my employer, the state of Iowa, the Department of Revenue. So in that situation, I would not charge tax on my lawn care services that I'm providing because it's, again, for my employer. Now, if I have a job on the weekends, and let's say I mow lawns for people, that's a different story. If I go out and mow your lawn at your house or mow your lawn outside your business on the weekends or after work at night, that is a taxable situation, and I would have a sales tax permit, and I would charge you the appropriate tax at that time. So hopefully that example, again, I doubt they're going to have me come to Des Moines to mow the lawn outside the Hoover building, but if they do, there would not be any sales tax involved in that situation. Okay, another example of things not subject to tax are items purchased for resale. So for example, again, if I am a retail business and I sell office supplies, okay, I sell pens and pencils, and here's my pen right here. If I go out and I can buy all the pens I want to for inventory that I'm going to sell in my store, my retail store that sells office supplies, I can purchase all of these pens that I want. I will pay no tax on them when I buy them because the resale exemption applies. Then when I do something with those pens, then the applicable tax will apply. If you come into my store and you buy some of these pens, I will ring up the sale and I will charge you the applicable tax at that time, unless, of course, you are tax exempt for some reason. But that's the basic gist of the resale exemption. Okay, let's see here. We do have a question. What is the time period for determining economic nexus? Previous year, rolling 12 months. With this one, I do have, what I could do is I could send you the rule on that. It describes when this would kick in for the economic nexus. What I would do with that one, I don't have the administrative rules in front of me, but you can email the department at idr@iowa.gov, idr@iowa.gov. And if you just want to even put attention Terry and say something about the webinar, and I can get you the rule for the economic nexus. It describes in there when this would kick in and when you're required to start collecting the Iowa tax. So please do that, and we'll get you what you need. All righty. Next one here, we got to talk about the local option sales tax just a little bit. And I did mention this earlier. I did mention about the local option sales tax. I said, hey, there's many areas in Iowa that do have the extra 1% local option sales tax. And this basically applies retailers, including remote sellers or marketplace facilitators that are required to have an Iowa sales tax permit. They got to collect state tax plus any applicable local option tax for all their taxable Iowa retail sales. This does not apply to use tax transactions. And again, we're going to talk a little more about use tax coming up here in just a little bit. But this applies to sales tax transactions. Again, lost local option sales tax is an additional 1% sales tax that can be imposed by Iowa counties and cities. This applies when taxable sales are sourced to a jurisdiction imposing the tax. It does not require a special permit to collect. If you've got an Iowa retail sales tax permit, you are already set up to collect the local option sales tax. You do not have to have another permit. When you do your filings with the department, when you do your quarterly return or annual return, there's a schedule to fill out for local option tax. Basically, you're going to tell us where you collected that money. And so then it will all get remitted to the department. But once we get it, the department will make sure that it gets distributed to the local jurisdictions as applicable per our formulas that we have for just distributing those funds. Basically, it applies to the same things that are subject to the sales tax. The local option tax does. So if local option applies, you're going to charge 7% instead of 6%. And I did mention this a little bit earlier on our website. We do have a lookup tool on our homepage. Our homepage is listed there, tax.iowa.gov. And there is a place to click on the lookup tool. It's really pretty neat. You can type in the address and it'll tell you what the rate is. So it's a good tool to use. We frequently, we have people contact us here at the Department of Revenue in the taxpayer services area, and they're like, what's the sales tax rate? What should I be charging when I deliver something to this address? And so we look that up for them. And then we also will inform them and say, hey, we've got this application. You can look it up. You can plug in any address you want in Iowa, and it'll tell you what the sales tax rate is. So it's a pretty handy tool. Okay, let me take a look here at a couple of questions here. Somebody is asking, what if you purchased for resale and pay no tax and go out of business or sale the next year? Okay. Basically, what are you doing with those things that you purchased? If you sell them, maybe you have a liquidation sale of some type, you'd collect the tax at that time. If you keep them for yourself, you'd still owe us some tax on the cost of that item. So it depends on what you do with them. If you do something with them, you sell them, you keep them for your own use, there would still be the applicable tax due in that situation. Another question that we have, we've got someone asking tax exemption for services performed. Is that labor only, or does it also include materials? Okay. Glinda, I think this example, I think you were asking about something construction related possibly, because I did give an example of that. If you are asking about something related to construction, the construction example is only an exemption on labor or services connected with that construction. Materials, with a few exceptions, materials tax is still going to be due on the materials, but it's usually going to be the construction contractor is the one that owes the tax on that. When they buy the materials, they're the ones that owe the tax. I don't want to get off track because sales tax for construction is a whole different ball game, so I don't want to confuse anybody. But the exemption I was talking about related to construction was for labor or for services only. All righty. As promised, we're going to spend a little bit of time in talking about use tax as well. When it comes to use tax, what in the world is use tax? Well, this is a 6% tax. Remember I said the state use tax rate was 6%. We do not have a local option use tax, okay? That local option tax that we have is a sales tax. And so local option tax only applies to transactions subject to sales tax. But use tax is only 6%. It's imposed on the use of tangible personal property, specified digital products, and services in Iowa. Use tax is generally due in two different situations. And again, these are just some broad examples here. When a retailer should have collected sales tax, but they did not, the purchaser is still going to owe us some use tax on that transaction. Certain transactions are also exempt from sales tax, but subject to use tax. This is by law, okay, by Iowa code. An example is aircraft. If somebody is purchasing aircraft, that is only subject to 6% use tax. It's not subject to sales tax, including local option tax. Almost all sales tax exemptions apply to use tax transactions as well, so there's not a great deal of difference between the two. Use tax can be collected by a retailer and remitted to the department. That is retailer's use tax. And if you remember, I talked about this a little bit earlier toward the beginning. I said a retail use tax permit can be used by a business outside the state of Iowa that does not have physical nexus. And they also do not meet the requirements of economic nexus. But if they want to register and collect our tax, retailer's use tax is what they would do. Use taxes can also be remitted to the state directly by the purchaser, and that's consumer's use tax. We'll talk about that one more here in just a few minutes. One thing I wanted to say on the retail use tax, I had somebody on the phone not too long ago who has a business somewhere in a western state. And they do a little bit of business in Iowa because the owner was originally from Iowa. And in that situation, they do make some sales here. And they were asking, the owner says, hey, he says, I gave him the requirements of whether he needed a sales tax permit. He did not meet those requirements at that time. And it was a gentleman I was speaking to. And he says, okay, he says, but I want to collect Iowa tax. I'm from the state of Iowa. I want to collect the proper tax and make sure the state of Iowa is getting the tax. And so it's certainly okay to do that. What he needed in that situation was a retail use tax permit. So that's just an example. All right. I was going to take a quick look here also before we move on. A couple questions. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. This one here, we got an example. A business selling tangible products filed a federal Schedule C return in 2020, but the owner said his CPA told him he could officially start the business in 2021 and begin to collect sales tax now and not pay any sales tax for last year. In that situation, basically, if they started selling taxable goods in Iowa, they need to collect and remit the tax on those sales. They can't officially just start a year later. So in that situation, tax is due when you start making taxable sales in the state of Iowa. So good questions. When it comes to paying this use tax, I want to touch on this consumer's use tax for you. This is something to be aware of. Any business or individual that makes taxable purchases on a regular basis that they do not pay Iowa sales tax on at the time of purchase, they should apply for a consumer's use tax permit. What am I talking about here? Okay, let's say that as an individual or as a business, you purchase different things from all over the country for use here in Iowa. I'll get my air quotes out here. Back in the day, a lot of people, when they ordered things mail order, they ordered it from some other state and it got shipped in here to Iowa and there was no tax on it. Okay. In that situation, if you purchase something to use here in Iowa as for your own use or for your business use, you owe us some use tax on it. And it's your responsibility to come to the department, tell us what you bought, pay the applicable Iowa consumer's use tax on that. Now, these days, since we have the economic nexus thresholds, and this is not something that's in Iowa, this is in many states as well. So more and more businesses located outside of Iowa are collecting and remitting the applicable Iowa tax. This has been since these law changes the last few years. But use tax, again, if you purchase something for use in Iowa and you bought it and did not pay Iowa sales tax, you owe us a use tax. If you do this on a regular basis, we said you should be applying for a consumer's use tax permit. If you have a sales tax permit, if you are a business, you have a sales tax permit already, we'll let you go ahead and report those purchases on the goods consumed line, which is line 2 on your quarterly or annual sales tax return. So you can just put in there the cost of those items. It'll flow through on the return and you'll remit the tax to the department that way. That's okay to do. Another thing that you can do, again, if you only make some occasional purchases, it's not something that's done on a regular basis, you can remit the consumer's use tax to us in one of two ways. You can go to our e-file and pay system And that's on our website. Hopefully you're familiar with that because that's how you file and remit your Iowa sales taxes. But there is an option on there to pay consumer's use tax electronically through e-file and pay, even if you do not have a permit with us. You can still go in and do this. Again, we have this option out there for those people that make occasional purchases subject to consumer's use tax. If you're not into doing things online, and there are some people that are not, that's okay. We do have a consumer's use tax worksheet. This is something that, this is for people that do not have permits. It's a fillable online worksheet that you can fill out. You can put a check with it and you can mail it to us. So that's something that you can do. There are many different options for paying your Iowa consumer's use tax liability. It just depends on the circumstances. Again, you make these purchases all the time, get a use tax permit. If you don't make these purchases all the time and you've got a sales tax permit, you can report it on the goods consumed line. If you do not have a sales tax permit, you don't make these purchases all the time, you can also, if you do these things occasionally, you can do it through the e-file and pay system for non-permit holders, or you can fill out the worksheet and you can mail it to us. All righty. Some filing information with the Iowa Department of Revenue. When it comes to filing sales tax returns, we've got different filing frequencies based on the, oops, just a second here. My security system's going off here. Okay, I think she's good. When it comes to remitting your sales tax to the department, we've got different filing frequencies, and it's based on basically the amount of tax that you are remitting to the department. When you apply for an Iowa sales tax permit, you must choose a filing frequency. And I'll just give you the highlights here as to which the filing frequencies, again, depending on the amount of tax that you're going to be collecting and remitting to the department. The most frequent one that we have is for the semi-monthly filers. And if you're going to do this semi-monthly, remit the tax to the department, you've got to do electronic payments. That's required in the Iowa Code. This is for people that, businesses, entities that are remitting more than $5,000 of tax per month. They would do this on a semi-monthly basis. They're required to make deposits with the department twice each month. They need to do this electronically. Again, this can be done through our e-file and pay system. The first deposit is for a period for the 1st through the 15th of the month, and this is due on or before the 25th of the month. The second deposit, which covers the second half of the month, the 16th through the end of the month, this is due on or before the 10th day of the following month. A deposit is not required for the 6th semi-monthly period of each quarter. Semi-monthly filers also need to file a quarterly return. And the return and the last deposit of the quarter or last payment, it's due by the last day of the month following each calendar quarter. So that's for semi-monthly filers. If you're not that big and not remitting that much tax, we also have a monthly filing frequency. This is for businesses that are remitting more than $500 a month, but less than $5,000 a month. And how they file is they file deposits on each of the first 2 months of the calendar quarter. These are due by the 20th of the following month. And there's no monthly deposit for the 3rd month of the quarter. For the 3rd month, you have to file the quarterly return with the payment for the balance of tax due for the quarter. If you're familiar with our quarterly returns, basically this is a recap of the entire quarter. You put in your gross sales, you put in your exempt sales, you put in how much tax you've already remitted to the department during the first 2 months of the quarter, and then here's what you owe us for the rest of the quarter. This one is due the last day of the month following each calendar quarter. We also have a quarterly filing frequency. This is for businesses that are remitting to the department more than $10 per month, but less than $500 a month. They can do this on a quarterly basis. They file a quarterly return with the department for each calendar quarter. Again, return and payment are due by the last day of the month following each calendar quarter. We also, for the smaller businesses that do not collect a lot of Iowa sales tax, we have an annual filing frequency. This is for businesses that collect less than $120 of tax in a year. They file once a year with us, and the return and payment are always due by January 31st of the following year. So we're in 2021 right now. The 2021 sales tax for annual filers is going to be due by January 31st of 2022. To file returns with us, I've mentioned this several times, but you file electronically through the e-file and pay system. E-file and pay can be accessed through our website, tax.iowa.gov, and there's a little red tab in the upper right-hand corner to click on for e-file and pay. If you were at the webinar last month, we talked about using the e-file and pay system. 3 things that you always need in order to file through e-file and pay. You need your BEN, which is your business e-file number. That's an 8-digit number that's issued to you by the department when you file for a sales tax permit, when you apply for a sales tax permit, excuse me. We're going to give you your tax permit. We're also going to give you the business e-file number. Your user ID and your password, that's something that you set up when you first get into e-file and pay. So you always need to have those things when you're going to file your returns with us. A few reminders for you on a couple of things that come up from now and again. The statute of limitations is normally 3 years. And the reason I say normally is because there are some exceptions. When you get into fraudulent situations and such, the statute is expanded longer than that. But in general, you can go back 3 years and submit a claim for refund. And if the department agrees that it's a valid reason for refund, we will grant that refund. We'll go back 3 years. When the department audits you, if you're ever audited by the department, if you've been registered, you're filing returns, you're doing everything you're supposed to, we'll go back 3 years on that as well. As I said, there are a few exceptions that are very specific for people that are not doing what they're supposed to. So there can be situations where we may go back further than that, but generally speaking, 3 years. Tax permits do not need to be posted. If you've been involved with sales tax for quite some time, you may remember back in the day when you used to get a sales tax permit from the Department of Revenue, and we used to send out this nice printed up sheet. It was on heavy cardstock. It was something that was printed up, kind of had a fancy pinkish purplish border around the outside, and you put that up in your business for public display. We have not had that requirement for years. So all we're going to do is mail you out a letter that basically has the tax permit number and the business e-file number on it. And that's all you're going to get from us. You don't have to put that up on the wall for people to look at. Iowa does not issue tax exempt numbers. The permit numbers that we issue to you are so you can collect and remit the applicable Iowa tax. It is not a magical tax exempt number, okay? These permits are not licenses to buy things tax exempt. In order to claim exemption, if you are exempt for some reason, you need to provide a completed sales tax exemption certificate to the vendor so you can claim exemption. That's the documentation that the seller needs to have on file in case they're ever audited by the department. Exemption certificates can be found on our website. Just make sure if you are exempt for some reason, such as purchasing something for resale for your business, you're a retail store, you're going to resell some products, you want to buy those products and not pay tax, complete the exemption certificate, give it to the vendor, all will be good. Just make sure you complete them though. If an exemption certificate is not completed, cross the T's, dot the I's, make sure that you've got it complete. It's not a valid one unless it's complete. So just something to be aware of. We do have information in this in the age of COVID-19. COVID, unfortunately, is better than it was before, but it's not completely out of here yet. We do have some information on our website related to COVID-19. You can take a look there if you'd like. I've got the link posted there. It does have our resources and different information available related to COVID-19. Hopefully this is going to be something that's a thing of the past here before too long. A reminder too, it's a good thing if you do not. You may wish to subscribe to our email updates. This is something that allows you to keep in touch with the department. If any of you subscribe to these now, you'll notice that you get these emails from time to time. They're on various topics throughout the Department of Revenue. I think it's a good thing myself. I've said this many a times, and again, if you've seen me before, you've heard me say this. I would rather have the information and not need it than need the information and not have it. If something comes out, I subscribe to all these things. And if something comes out and it's something that I don't deal with or it doesn't affect me, I just hit delete. So it's no big deal. But it may be something that's very important to you or your type of business. So it's a good thing. I think it doesn't cost anything. We don't spam you to death or anything like that. These are the various topics that you can subscribe to. And again, it's another way of staying in touch with the Department of Revenue. So I think that's a good thing. More information is good. As far as I'm concerned, it's better than not getting enough information. So please subscribe if you don't. If you need to contact us for questions, we can be reached by phone. Our phone numbers are listed on there. You can also email the department, and our email address is listed on there. Depending on what your question is, I may be one of the folks that responds back to your email. So we did have a question a little bit earlier that was asking about the Nexus rules and such of when this kicks in and when you have to start collecting the tax, the look back period and such. Email your question there, idr@iowa.gov. I'll sure get you a link to that rule that explains it to you. Okay. Some other reminders as well. The Department of Revenue is on social media. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. So it's another way of staying in contact with the department. If you use that type of social media, hey, check us out. We are out there. So just something to be aware of. I also have to do our disclaimer at the end, I guess. Just please remember, this is intended only for general educational purposes. If you're involved in an audit or a protest, or you've been contacted by the department by our collection staff, or have some other issues with the department, you've got to work with your contact there. That's not something that myself in the taxpayer services area can get involved in. So please be aware of that. That's the information I had for you. I know that we do have some questions up here still, so I've got some time. We'll go ahead and take a look at some of these questions. I'll see if I can shed some light on them for you.
Awesome. Well, Terry, great job. And yep, thanks everyone. We've got about 7 minutes left in our time today. So we've got about a dozen open questions. So we'll get to as many of those as possible. So go ahead wherever you want to start, Terry.
Okay, I'll jump in on these questions. Again, if I don't get to your question, email at idr@iowa.gov. Okay, and you can even put attention Terry on it and say, hey, I was in the webinar. What's my answer? And I'll try to provide as much information as I can to you. We've got one here. We are a manufacturing company in Iowa. If we build manufacturing machines or repair machines, do we need to pay sales tax on parts or services? If you build manufacturing machines, okay. If you purchase parts that are going to be used in these machines that you are manufacturing, no, you would not pay tax on them when you buy them, because that's going into your product that you're making. And it's basically a resale or processing exemption, so you would not pay tax on those when you buy them. But when you sell the machine, then depending on the circumstances, you may have to collect tax, or maybe somebody down the line will collect the tax on the sale. It also says here about repairing machines. If you are a manufacturer and your machinery breaks down, do you need to pay sales tax on parts or services? And I'm going to put out there that generally, yes, generally you do. There can be exceptions though. If you are a food manufacturer, there are some exceptions out there. But as a general rule, the answer is yes, you're going to pay sales tax on that. Okay, and we're back to the one here that asked a question earlier about the business that started in 2020 making sales and didn't collect the tax. So what happens, if anything, if the business owner chooses not to go back and pay sales tax for the last year? Well, it's about like anything else. If you get audited by the department, obviously the department will collect the tax and any applicable penalties and interest from you. That's basically that's what can happen in that situation. Okay. So can you clarify the situations when the 7% tax rate would apply for use tax when a repair is done on site and tax not charged. Okay. In a situation like that, if the business, if you had a taxable service or a taxable purchase where you took possession in Iowa, or if it was a sale of a product, or if it was a service and the first use of the services in Iowa. So let's say I took my car down to the local garage to get some work done. And for whatever reason, they didn't charge me any tax, okay? And that's not correct. I'd probably have a discussion with them if it was me, but I work for the Department of Revenue. But at any rate, if they did not charge me tax, I don't get a freebie today, okay? I would still be responsible for 7% tax, assuming I'm in a local option sales tax area. So that's where a situation would be where I would owe the 7% tax. Okay, let's see. I'm going to skip one of them here. My quarterly consumer's use tax return has a section for entering local option tax. If the use tax rate is a 6%, should I not be entering purchases in that section for local option tax? That's a good question. And that one basically goes back to the example that I just gave. Again, I take my car down to the local garage here located in Iowa. I had taxable work done. If I'm in a local option area, it is subject to 7% tax. If for whatever reason that retailer doesn't charge me the proper tax, oh, security system again. If the local place does not charge me any tax, it's on me to pay it, and I would owe the local option tax in that situation because I should have paid sales tax at the time. For whatever reason, the retailer didn't charge me, so that's when I would owe I would put that local option tax on there. Okay. Very good question here. Do you provide a webinar on the construction taxes that we should be charged and exemptions allowed? Okay. At this time, we do not have a webinar scheduled for Iowa sales tax for construction and related. Our webinar schedule is pretty well set for this year, so I don't think it would happen this year. I do know that we've been in discussions about holding that topic. We do have some people from time to time that have requested that. So I guess my answer to you is stay tuned. Just watch our website, watch the Iowa SourceLink website. It'll have our topics on there as they for our webinars. So possibly next year. No promises, but maybe next year.
We do have a past presentation from 2019 on construction. Terry, is that maybe at least get you some general information, but there may be some nuance that is updated in the last 2 years?
Yeah, that would be something that you could go ahead and that would get the basics for it. Again, just keep in mind, it is a couple years old. There could be some different information that's been updated since then, but that's a good place to get the basics. We also do have a publication on our website for sales tax for construction as well. You can get that and take a look at it. Good questions. So when only submitting consumer's use tax, you do not need to submit the local option tax. Okay, if it is a true consumer's use tax transaction, that is correct. You do not owe the local option tax in that situation. The other question, there is one other question out there that I see asking about software support services. I'd ask if you would please email that to the department. And we'll see about getting an answer for that.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up everything that we've got for today, and we are right on time. So thank you everyone for joining us today on behalf of the University of Northern Iowa, Iowa Economic Development Authority, and Iowa SourceLink. Thank you to the Department of Revenue and Terry for sharing this session with us on sales and use tax. Has been recorded and it will be available through YouTube on both the SourceLink site and the Department of Revenue. You'll get a follow-up email on that. In the chat, you'll find the link that you can sign up for the rest of the series. Our next upcoming webinar is going to be on August 18th. And that is going to be on our streamlined sales tax. So we're going to be looking at if you're selling online or doing anything like that, if you're a marketplace facilitator. It's going to be online sales and streamlined sales tax. That's going to be at noon on August 18th. So go out to SourceLink and sign up for that one. Again, thank you everybody for attending, and we hope to see you in our next webinar.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great day.